Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Train Experts. I'm Iman Zabi, the founder of Train, and today we're going to be speaking to Anna Hetzel. Anna is the founder of Strange Birds and has crafted human-centered conversion copy designed to help growing brands strengthen relationships and retain their customers. Anna also created Community Camp, which I'm part of and super excited to be a member of, which is a 4-week masterclass for leaders on designing and facilitating and maintaining paid online communities. And Anna's also the founder of PB&Qs. I was going to say PB&J, but PB&Qs.
Close, but not quite.
I know. An online business community for LGBTQ plus women, trans, and gender non-conforming folks. When they're not slinging words and building communities, you can find them in the woods reading a book and trying to figure out how to stop rabbits from eating their garden. Okay, so if you ever do figure out how to stop rabbits from eating their garden, I would like to know. And if you want to just ship some rabbits my way, that would be great. I love rabbits.
Rabbits tend to proliferate rather quickly, so I'd be careful what you wish for.
I love it. Okay. So Anna is going to be talking to us about how we can how we can go from a one-on-one business to one-to-many without burning out while still delivering amazing value that we bring to our one-on-one clients. Okay, let's get started.
Yes.
Okay. So first off, what really is a community? How is that different from just throwing everybody into a Facebook group?
Well, first I want to say that I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me on. And defining community, one of my missions in life is to have us all stop calling our email lists and social media followers a community. They're not a community. They are people who listen to you. It's very transactional or one-to-one. So as one to many in terms of like it's the shape of a triangle, right? You say something and a lot of people listen and maybe they interact in the comments, but they're not really interacting with each other. They're interacting with you. A community is when you turn that into a circle shape. So it's not just you at the helm, it's everybody talking to each other. So community is a group of people brought together by a shared interest where they're mutually invested in each other's success. So Iman and I in a community together, we're like fighting for each other, right? Someone like hurts one of us, we're gonna hurt him back. I'm just kidding. It's not that violent at all. But it's a friendship, right? It's understanding how to create friendships out of a disparate group of individuals. That is community building.
That's so interesting. And I love that you said it's not like email because I've always thought of email as like, I mean, it's an audience. You're like on stage talking at people. It's not really a community. So I love that. That's a really,
Yes.
really great way of illustrating it. Um, so kind of from the way you're describing community, it does sound like a lot of organic bonds. Is there a way to structure community so that those kind of bonds are built in a way that feels natural? Or is that something that is even possible online?
It's totally possible to structure it. And I think I should quickly kind of list off what an online community might be called in the online business space, just to give some context. So, an online community can be a paid membership, a mastermind, a course that has a community support element, um, group coaching. There's a lot of different ways that online communities are around in our world. And they're usually built because someone wants to build the next tier on their ascension model, or they're tired of doing one to one and they want to scale their business. And scaling generally means like, let's just get more people at a different price point where I don't have to do all of the work. So, with that in mind, yes, there is a way to structure to help inspire those types of relationships and friendships. And it all comes down to what type of space you're creating. So in community camp, my 4-week masterclass, I'm trying to create a really safe space for the campers that are there to really figure out what the heck they're doing, right? This conversation over and over and over again, and how to be a good facilitator instead of a leader, because there's a slight difference there. And so how I built that was through really explicit onboarding, explicit not as in a bunch of cuss words, but like this is exactly what's going to happen. This is the code of conduct. These are the expectations of everyone within this group. And so you can create those types of that culture really easily and really fast with really, really good onboarding, and not onboarding just here's how to log in and here's how to find stuff. I don't know if I can curse on this. Here's how to find stuff.
Okay.
um, so here's how to log in. Here's how to find stuff. Here's what happens, right? That's like the stuff of the space. What really makes online communities great and what makes them easier to facilitate and moderate is when it's much more focused on who is in there and why they're there. So if you're a copywriter, you'll know the age old like start with the why. And in communities, it's not just start with the why. The why is literally everything. It's all it's there for. Your job is to support the possibility of what could be and let everyone else really take control.
I love that. And you mentioned there's a difference between being a leader and being a facilitator. Can we quickly jump into that? Because I know a lot of our audience is course creators, and in your course, you want to show up as the figure of authority, as the leader. But how is that different in a community space?
Yeah, it's a little different when you're teaching something, right? You want people to feel confident that you know what the hell you're doing. And so there's a little bit more leadership going on there. But once you get into that community space, it turns into facilitation. So a leader is a person making the choices, guiding everything, saying yes, no, this, that, right? Facilitate. And I should also say a leader tends to be like the end all answerer to
Mhm.
every question. A facilitator is probably the person asking the questions and holding the space and stepping back. So I think where a lot of online business owners, when they start to create their first paid online community, that is something that's really hard, is figuring out how do I take off my I'm an expert hat and put on my I'm just going to step back and make sure everyone is held and can ask questions and I'm not the one answering everything. Because if you end up being the one answering everything, that's like, hello, burnout and resentment. And why the hell did I build this thing in the first place? I tried to make a one to mini so I didn't have to work this goddamn hard, right? So creating a space where members are empowered to take care of themselves and you facilitate those connections. So it's like bringing people into the conversation and stepping back. So if someone was like, I want to create an entire new platform that's like really awesome, I would probably tag Iman in that conversation and be like, hey, talk to Iman. Iman's done this. She probably has a lot of wisdom. I step back, right? Because I don't know how to do that. I could like guess, but I'm not going to be the best person to answer that question.
I
If
love
you're
that.
running, yeah, if you're running a course and people are asking you questions as you're teaching, you should probably do most of the answering because that's what they're there for. But when they get into the integration space and implementing inside the online community, that's when you're allowed to step back.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I see a lot of people not quite getting that balance just right. So I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. And that's a great segue into my next question, which is, should everybody create a community? Who should be?
No.
Okay.
No. um, no, because that would be a lot of communities and not enough people. One, if everybody created community, there'd be a community of one everywhere. Two, I think if you are thinking about creating an online community, beyond thinking, I want to create a more scalable way to help more people, really, really think about your own capacity. I think a lot of what happens often is people don't think about it actually takes a lot of energy to run and facilitate an online community, like way more than you think it should. And so really take into account like this is going to take up a lot more of your time than you expect. Your energy is going to feel a lot different than if you're going from one-to-one client work to then facilitating a community. You're going to have to be dealing with a whole different type of interaction, which means all of the imposter syndrome mindset stuff that maybe you've got slightly figured out with your one-to-one does not apply. Does not transfer into being a leader of a group and a facilitator of a group. So giving yourself the space to like be really cognizant of all of that and to give yourself space to figure out how you show up as a facilitator and being aware that this isn't easy, which maybe is not what you want to hear, but this is not just like an easy way to make a ton of money. It could be an easy way to make a ton of money at the very beginning because people are really excited about the idea. They get in there, they get what they need, and then they bounce. And then you're constantly trying to find new members all the time because no one stays. So before you even do that, have a moment, sit with yourself, ask what is my capacity? Why am I building this not just for money, but for helping others? Or what do I want my members to get out of it? What are my boundaries around this? And then build it with all of that container in mind, or else it's just going to like snowball into a thing that you cannot contain and control. I ended
Yeah.
with like an upswing on my voice, but that was the end of the sentence.
No, that's fair. Okay, so say I've done that work, I've sat down, I'm going to invest the energy, I've made space for it, I'm ready, and I'm in the right headspace. What are the most important things I need to consider when I'm building an online community?
Oh, you figured out your boundaries, you figured out your capacity. And then the next I would really think about is not who this community is for. So maybe you're building like Terrain is a space for online entrepreneurs to like figure their shit out in a way that's vetted and not probably way better
Mhm.
than like random courses that they might find online, right? They get the assurance that I'm investing money in something that I know is good.
Yep.
Um, so thinking about, is it okay that I use Terrain as an example?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Thinking about not just who. For community camp, I was building it for people who want to create online communities. That's the who. Awesome. Why in the world would they want to join? What is the outcome and transformation that you're wanting your members to have? So not just I want to like your members are like, I just want to make more money. Not yours, it's
Mhm.
Terrain. I'm a hypothetical
Yeah.
community. I want to make more money. I want to figure out how to actually do sales without falling into a pit of despair or anxiety. I want to become a really successful freelancer, but I'm not quite sure on the business side of things. Right? Those are the things that they want to get out of it, but the outcome of all of that is some type of confidence as an entrepreneur, confidence as someone who can like go out and make money when needed, right? If you can
Right.
actually do sales, confidence as a facilitator. So really think about, and that's a transformation. When someone finds that confidence, they're transformed in some way. So I would sit and really think about, what brand of confidence am I inspiring? Am I helping for people to find the possibility of within my community? Think about that. And that is like the North Star of everything you do from then on out. Every decision you make in your community, from onboarding to programming that you have inside to content that you put out to your marketing pitches, are all under that lens of, this is the transformation I want people to have. If you hold that focus rather than, you're going to get better at sales, which, like,
Mhm.
cool, people do need to hear that in order to join. But take a moment and think about communities and online communities that you're a part of that you absolutely love. You're probably not super involved because they are teaching you how to be really good at a thing. You're probably super engaged and will never leave it because you've made friends, because you feel safe and you feel supported, and you're getting all of these like other soft emotional things. That's what keeps us in spaces. And I'm not saying like, do this so you can manipulate people to stay, right? Like that's what we need. Human beings are built to be with others. And as a facilitator, you have this really beautiful gift to create a space where people can feel safe and supported and included, to go create a possibility that you hadn't even thought of before.
Right.
Like, that's really beautiful. So really think about that transformation, and then hold that in your mind forever. Like, that is what your space is for.
I really, really love that, because what you're saying is like, it's not so much about the content that's kind of being put out into your community, but rather about kind of creating space for members to build those lateral connections with one another, so that that's what keeps people invested in the long run. I really like that, because it's basically, I mean, now thinking about that, your name for community camp is so appropriate, because it is like camp. You go to camp to make friends. And I mean, learn some things along the way, but it's really about the people you meet at camp. So I love that framing of it. It's so smart. Um,
I did not think about that in the name. I just thought it was fun and I like alliteration, but that's an even better reason. Can I steal it?
You can't.
You're making me
I'll
sound
send you a
way
bill for it.
good.
No, that's super, super smart. And I love that. And honestly, like when I read your sales page for it, that's one of the things that kind of, I'm just like, this is the most appropriate name ever because everybody uses camp, but this is a space where it actually works really well.
Mm.
And I mean, I can tell how much work you've put into community camp on the whole and how much is kind of how every step of it is really thought out. And I know we touched about on this a little bit earlier, but holding space for people is emotionally exhausting. I mean, it takes a lot of bandwidth. So how do you avoid burnout and how do you kind of keep showing up with the same energy so that people are continuing to get the most out of it and, you know, keeping your overall churn low and things like that?
Um, Before I forget, so something that you just said is keep showing up with the same amount of energy. So the first thing that I would say is you don't have to.
Okay.
Um, I think especially in a community space, because remember, you're not the leader, you're the facilitator. You are allowed to be as messy and as tired as you want to be, especially if you're creating a space where you want other people to show up and share what they're
Mhm.
struggling with. You can show by example. Like show up and be like, I'm just having a really bad day today. I'm going to do my best, but I want to let you all know that like there's a lot going on. I'm really tired. I'm here for you, but I'm very tired. And that is okay. So I think you don't have to show up at 100% every day. And in fact,
Mhm.
I think it's best that you don't, because again, you're not the leader. You're the facilitator. And the more that you can facilitate people having those conversations as well, that also inspires that connection that you really want to have in your community to keep people engaged, to keep people inspired, to keep people making those connections. You are allowed to be messy. You're allowed to define what messy means for you. um, it doesn't mean that like you have to show up crying one day, right? If messy for you is just acknowledging that you're tired and that's enough of a vulnerability, go for it. Do whatever feels comfortable for you, but I just want to release the expectation that you have to be at your best every day. Um, and from that, something that so I go to therapy. I'm not ashamed about it. I absolutely love my therapist. I think he's brilliant. I've learned so much from him. And the biggest thing that I've learned from him that I can never take credit for, even though I say it all the time, is self-care is community care. So when you're thinking about burnout as a facilitator of a space, take care of yourself first, which is why when you ask me what's some of the first things to think about when building your community is your own capacity. Because if you're allowed to show up and share like I'm really tired, I'm really struggling, that's okay, but that can't be like every day, right? Because then everybody's taking care of you. And just how it's kind of like one of those friendships where like that friend is always complaining and you're like, oh my god, oh, isn't
Yep.
there nothing good in your life? Um, and so be mindful of that, right? But take care of yourself and share that you're taking care of yourself to inspire other people to take care of themselves. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to show up for others in the way that you want to. You're going to show up because you feel like you have to, or out of guilt. If you were raised in the Midwest or Catholic, there's lots of guilt. Um, uh, if you show up because it's on your calendar and you're like, well, have to do it. Oh my God. Um, if there's things that you really can't get out of on your calendar, what can you do even in 5 minutes that will make you feel better? For me, I have very loud, random one song dance parties before I do things like this, which are very nerve wracking for me. I'm sweating a lot, so I'm wearing a black shirt. Um, so I turn up my speakers and I dance and I sing really loud and I get all of my energy out and it makes me feel like really fun and really confident. And then I sit down and I do something that's super scary. So figuring out how you take care of yourself and how you take care of yourself that doesn't require like you escaping the city or wherever you live for an entire week. Small things that are self-care that help ground you. So self-care is community care. If you do that, you're going to be able to show up how you want in that space and inspire your members to show up how you would like them to show up as well. I can't remember what the rest of your question was.
It was a long-winded question. I
Okay.
think it was about churn within your community.
Mm. churn within your community is inevitable. Um,
Right.
I mean, think and for people listening in, like take a moment and think, do you have a friend community that has lasted your entire life? That's really rare. That's super rare. People change, people grow out of, people grow into. And so be at peace with the fact that some people are going to leave, and that's great. Um, my philosophy whenever I do branding exercises, I'm doing a complete rebrand in my business, and I'm the people that I've hired to help, there's always the question of, hey, who are your competitors? And I'm like, I honestly don't think I have a competitor. And it's not because I'm really full of myself. It's because if someone doesn't hire me, amazing. It means I wasn't the right person. And I don't want someone to hire me just because they feel like it's maybe, probably, I don't know, the right choice. Like, I want people to hire me because they're really excited to work with me.
Yeah.
And the same way, I want people to be in a community that I facilitate because they're excited to be there and not because they feel like they'll be abandoning me or there's loyalty. Like, I don't want you
Right.
to be in my community because you just feel loyal. Like, I want you to be there because you're getting that transformation, you're getting something out of it. So be okay with letting things go. Um, but in terms of like, if you're struggling with a ridiculous amount of churn, like you're like, this is really has turned this into something unsustainable. The first thing I would look at is your onboarding. So, how are you onboarding people? Is it just they fill out a form and then they're invited into the Slack or Facebook group or Circle or whatever? There's a bajillion platforms out there. Um, and that's that. Is there a welcome email sequence? Is there a video that you send out? So really look at your onboarding. And if you're an e-commerce, or honestly, if you're a SaaS copywriter, think about a welcome email sequence that you would write for a SaaS or even an e-commerce thing and just transfer that to your community. Same idea, right? Just how to keep people using a piece of software. I'm not a SaaS copywriter, so I'm just like making this up, but like to keep people using like the same.
It's
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about. There's an entire
Yes.
chapter just on community in this. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So how would you onboard people into your email list or into if you're a copywriter or a designer or whatever, into one of your clients' works, right? Really be intentional. I think the biggest mistake that people make, one of the biggest when they make an online community, is they open up the space and are like, have fun. And they just like think it'll happen magically. It will not happen magically. It will not. Onboarding can fix a ton. I know somebody who is struggling with a ton of churn. She totally redid her onboarding and 100% turned it around because as soon as someone hears about your space, they're starting to create expectations of what it'll be inside. And most importantly, they're going to start creating an image of themselves inside of that space. How are they going to show up? Right? Oh, cool. I'm thinking about joining this community. And when I go in that space, I'm going to be like an expert in this. Right? And they like start picturing themselves there. We all do that. And so, what you can do is channel that really excited energy and help them continue to build that picture of themselves. So, when they do get into that space, they're like, here I am fully formed. Whoop, right? So really think about how not just to show up, but how not to just find stuff, but codes of conduct. How do we treat each other? What is this space for? How do we talk to each other? All of that really good onboarding can help with churn. And then if you're still having really bad churn, then it's a symptom of maybe there's some programming issues. So if you have like monthly themes, it could be like nobody cares about them and you should maybe let them go and figure something else out. I would say fix your onboarding and then actually survey your members. Just ask for feedback all the time, forever, like once a month. I don't know, literally like as much as often as you can. Like, what are you getting out of this space? Why are you still here? How can we make this space better? Uh, Ask them because they will tell you what you want. And again, you're not the leader, you're the facilitator. So you don't have to make all the decisions. And in order to not make all the decisions, you have to ask what people want.
Oh, I love that. That's so smart. Um, for people who are new to the community space, what kind of churn is really bad churn?
I I'm not a numbers person, but if you've got like up 30% or more, I would be really concerned. Like really concerned. That's really high. Um, but it kind of depends on, it's kind of subjective,
Right.
which is a horrible answer to that. If you have a low cost membership that's like 20 to 50 bucks a month, um, that that's about the price of like HBO Max or like a Netflix
Mhm.
subscription or something, that's a lot easier to let go, or to forget that it's there. And then you get billed and you're like, oh shit, wait, I don't want to be in that anymore. And then you cancel.
Right.
Um, so if you have a high churn at a higher priced thing, I would really, really do some work because you're not delivering on something. If you have a high churn on a lower tiered membership, I would look at your onboarding and then look at how you are engaging people to get them back into your space through either emails or some other way of messaging them because they might have forgotten that it's there. So think about how you can get people back out of their inboxes and out of doom scrolling on Instagram into the space to remember, oh, right. Once they're there, they go, God, I love this space. I totally forgot this existed. I've seen this in a lot of online communities where people show up and they're like, oh my God, how did I forget? I'm like, ah, remind people if you feel like a broken record, you're doing something right. Honestly, people are so busy. It is okay to repeat yourself a bajillion times. But in the answer of what is bad churn, it's really subjective on what you're building, what your own goals are, and how big your audience is that you can then convert into community members. So sorry, I can't give a number there.
No, but that was super helpful. I think just for me personally, understanding the difference between a low ticket community versus like a more expensive one, I would have assumed, like just me having no community knowledge whatsoever, I would have assumed the opposite was true. But it was really interesting because your reasoning makes so much more sense than what I had going on in my head. Because I'm like, oh, it's cheap, so I might stick around versus, oh, it's expensive. Should I just like take this off my list sort of a thing. So that's really interesting, but I really like the way you approach that. There was just so much gold in this conversation. Can we quickly summarize everything we covered for people who kind of spaced out? Because I know that happens to me all the time. No, but I mean, like, there's just, I mean, if you did space out, like, there's going to be recording, please come back. It's really, really good. So the first thing we said, so the first thing we said was make sure that you are showing up as a facilitator, not a leader. The second was your email list is not a community. Your Instagram following is not a community. That's an audience. And your
Scream
community,
it to the world.
your community is a circle and it's somewhere where people can form real bonds and friendships. Okay. The next thing was the most important thing to consider when you're building an online community, and that was that you have the space personally to show up and to hold space for everybody, and that you have, you know, the time to commit to it. And number two, that you are focusing on the outcome for your audience, not just the why. All right.
Not the what.
Not the
Like
what. Yeah.
what they're learning, right? Of this is a space for freelancers, or this is a space for pitching things, or this is a space for X, Y,
Right.
Z. Forget the alphabet. Think about like this is a space. That's
Gotcha.
that's first and foremost.
I love that. And I feel like copywriters are going to be able to resonate with that really well because it reminded me when you were speaking about that analogy, the people aren't buying a quarter-inch drill, they're buying a quarter-inch hole. And I feel like that's kind of the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing on your list was yeah, I have terrible memory.
This is
Ooh.
amazing. This is like the best. Here's what we've done. Recap. And because you're not even looking at notes. So you've got a great memory.
Oh, well, thank you. My mom would say otherwise, but thank you. And so would every educator I've ever had to deal with in my life. But
Selective memory.
yes,
I have a very good selective memory.
I have a decent memory when I'm listening to something interesting. So there you go. Okay, and so the next thing on your list was self-care is community care, which I found really, really interesting, but is because it makes complete sense. Because if you are depleted, you're going to not be able to show up. And At the same time, you said that you don't actually have to show up 100% every single time, because it's important to be vulnerable and show up like an actual human, because you're a facilitator, not a leader. And the last thing was churn. If you have crazy churn, you are, this is the part I'm going to forget. If you have crazy churn and you have a low priced offer, then check your onboarding. If you have, or did I forget?
Can I do this one?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, if you have high churn or it feels high to you, step one, look at your onboarding. What can you do to either increase, like make it better, make it stronger? Are you setting up the right expectation of they're thinking about the whole instead of the drill? Like make sure they're thinking about that, not just here's what you'll get out of it. Because the thing is, once they get what they want out of it, they're gone. Right? You want them to make friendships and also learn stuff. So look at your onboarding, and then step two, ask for feedback. Ask the people who are in there, what do you want more of? How can I make this space more safe and supportive? How can I make this space more fun? Do you like, give them a list of like, here's the things that we've done. Why do you like this? Why do you not like it? How am I doing as a facilitator? Ask leadership feedback, which no one does, which they should. So ask feedback on yourself, which is super scary to do, but I gotta tell you, it's the best feedback that you're gonna get to figure out how you can shift the space. So onboarding, and then ask for feedback and listen, because you don't have to make all the decisions. Let them make the decisions for you.
That is incredible. Thank you so much for your time. For everybody who's listening in, where can they go to connect with you?
Yeah, so I am in the middle of a complete rebrand, and so my URL is changing. So I'm going to give my current one, and then if you're watching after July, so my current one is annafhetzel.com, ANNAF as in Frank, HETZEL.com. Or if you're watching in August, you can find me at strangebirds.land.
Ooh, that's a great name. I'm excited. Okay, perfect. We're gonna make sure we have both of those links in the chat for you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I could talk about this forever. This was so much fun. I love it.
Thank you.